welcome to another episode of Armchair CMOs. It's your boy. I remember to call myself V Moss today. It's
Vima, and it's your girl Jules. I almost put in JFed under because if you're VMOS, then I'm JFed, which is like I didn't do it because I know that it's terrible. But that is a throwback to like my old AIM login in like 2006 or something, because it also was a play on KFed. It was big at the time.
which is why I made that face because I know who K-Fed is, and that's
That's
not
bad. That's
someone you
bad.
want to be, not someone you want to be associated with. Okay, anyway, all right, let's get right. We're gonna keep it light today. Some quick hitting topics that dominated the sports world, especially from a marketing and branding and media standpoint that we want to talk about. I'm gonna go first. So dominated the whole week. Got to shout out LiAngelo Ball dropping his song Tweaker, which was like everywhere. For those of you who don't know, I mean, if you're watching this, I hope you know who LiAngelo Ball is, but he's the middle of the three Ball brothers. Um, his brothers Lonzo and LaMelo are in the NBA. But the most important reason that this is a big deal is because of how crazy, annoyingly consistent the Ball brothers' dad, LeVar, was back when they hit the scene about 10 years ago. He was everywhere. He was pushing them because they were good at basketball, but turned it into reality TV, turned it into their own sneaker and clothing brand, and turned it to those guys making the NBA and LiAngelo trying to make it the NBA. But he dominated this week because of the song that dropped. And it became famous, just like all songs that blow up become famous in 2024, 2025. It went viral on the internet. So immediately after it dropped, it was all over the internet. But
Like
NBA
memeified. It
was
was all over.
unified, the college and NBA teams added it to their pregame warm-ups. It was everywhere. And so to really take it to the next level, he actually signed a deal with Def Jam today. So his deal with Def Jam could get up to $13 million, which is a big deal. That's all for one song, and that just shows where music is, which is a whole other conversation. But I just want to talk about that because it's such a cool just salute to LeVar Ball for as crazy as he was and annoying as he was at the time. You got to give him credit for how much he believed in his vision and how like it didn't go exactly the way that he said it would, but I think it still ended up pretty well for them as a family. So shout out to the Ball brothers, shout out to LeVar Ball, and then go stream Tweaker wherever you stream music. I don't know.
I want, yeah. Why are you plugging Tweaker? Also, as if it needs your promo. Um, Unrelated or totally related, but the note. Um, okay. LeVar Ball, I definitely hated him in like 2014. He was like so annoying. And so his whole image has like made a total 182. I want to feel like I want to give him credit for that. But this song is like so fucking funny because it's like maybe not that good, but also everyone loves it. Um, and we like literally just played it because we needed like a vibe check on a Monday night. So it puts us in a better mood. And I was just talking about how much I love like the social media videos they do with the social media teams and the players like walking to practice or the games or whatever. And they did a like finish the lyric, like swerve bend that corner, and then they had the players do like the whoa, 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 whoa part, which was so funny to watch. Like I loved these videos because the players you could tell had almost the same reaction that like Mon and I were just having, that like you don't want to love it as much as you do. Like you don't want to have as much fun with it as it actually is. And it was like so hysterical to watch the reactions.
Yes,
I
probably
do.
my favorite video that was done in that format was by the Brooklyn Nets. And the person behind the camera doing social media is actually one of my former interns from Georgetown, Sichi. Shout out to Sichi. She's amazing. Proud of you. Keep doing great work. But that video was a perfect capture of that moment. And where it was like the players all knew it, but they had that whole thought process of like, do I want to sing it or
I don't
not?
want to do it. Yeah.
don't really want to sing it, but it was definitely fun and definitely entertaining. So shout out to Sichi about that. She did a great job. All right, you're up. What you got?
Next, something else that is just like light and fun that I saw a lot of this week, obviously because I get a lot of DC news. Was the Wizards did a Hoops and Hounds night. So I think I posted on our Instagram story, plug our Armchair CMO's Instagram, um, that the players did a promotion for like a local shelter where they posted adoptable dogs, and I thought that was really great. And that was part of the promo for this Hoops and Hounds night, where they sold like basically one section in the upper level of the arena to people. It was like a $50 ticket and a $10 ticket for the dogs, and it was just one section. And then a portion of the proceeds went to that same shelter that they were like promoting in earlier posts. So I love this from like so many different angles. First of all, like the dog nights at stadiums across the DC area usually do well, like Audi Field, which is a soccer stadium, and Nats Park, which is a baseball stadium, both do well. Um, so I like that they're like tapping into that. I like that they made it like a charity thing, a community thing. But it also just like so cute and wholesome. Apparently it did really well. There was like it sold out. There was 180 dogs or something like that in the arena. I saw like an athletic article and there was 140 dogs. I'm gonna fact check myself. Um, and the Athletic posted that apparently like even the players really loved the idea. Like when they heard that it was happening that night, like they thought it was a really cool, cute thing that they were doing. So I just thought this was like such a win for everybody. And it's just like such cute, light news in a week where there was a lot of not cute, light news, like a lot of really devastating news. So this was just like a nice kind of positive story
Yeah, I
that
mean,
came out of this last week.
the first I've ever heard of a dog's night at an indoor arena.
Arena.
So
Mm-hmm.
shout out to the Wizards, to the Monumental crew. Assuming that it went well, that we didn't hear anything. Because if that's one of those things where if it goes wrong, like you'll know. Like we are in the geographic radius enough that it would have picked up on our algorithms that we would have found out if some dog pooped in the middle of the concourse and someone stepped in it or someone's dog bit someone. Like we would have heard about that.
Or it
So
was like barking during free throws or
yeah,
something. Yeah.
yes, all that. So if that didn't happen, that sounds great. I think that I think that it was definitely a test of whether they can do it or if they decide to do it bigger. I think that that's probably like
Tempting fate.
I think you want to just keep it like sometimes less is more. Like the fact that you could do it, I think is great, but trying to get big as someone who's hosted Bark in the Park at a couple different venues, phew, man, I remember we did it at Richmond for a football game, which was the first time they'd ever done it at football, and I was buying poop bags before I went to the stadium that day.
That
But
was smart though.
yeah,
Yeah.
you have them and give them away but yeah, I think definitely cool promo. I think we'll be interested to see if many more NBA teams or basketball teams do this in the future.
I feel like they must have just hired somebody new there because the Wizards have been doing a couple cool things lately. I just like really quickly want to shout out DC got a snowstorm like last week or 2 weeks ago, and DC doesn't get a lot of snow, so it's like a big thing. And every time there's a big snowstorm in DC, there's like impromptu snowball fights in all of the big parks, so like on the mall and in some of the other like bigger parks around the city. And it's very cute, like come together as a community DC moment. But the Wizards sent out G-Wiz, the mascot, to go take part in the snowball fights, which I just thought was like really smart marketing and kind of cute and fun. Um, they also lately, like somebody tweeted something about how G-Wiz has like a whole suite of shoes that
Mhm.
like are relevant if you're like if you recognize like
Yeah,
if you're a sneakerhead, you'll recognize them.
yeah,
It's a whole wardrobe, and they've been like t turning out content about this over the last like 24 or 48 hours.
yeah.
Just like latching onto like one organic tweet or something about it. Like whatever they're doing lately, I feel like they're doing a good job. That's all.
Saw the thing
Shout
about
out
his
Wizards.
shoes. I just saw the thing about his shoes because it's a big deal that he has foams, and foam is
Yeah, that's what like
very,
started it. Yeah.
like a very DC cultural staple in the sneaker world. So it's definitely relevant to the city, and I think they do a good job. Well, I mean, they try to do a really good job of staying tapped in with the city, which I think is important. Um,
They're like really showing that lately.
and it's even more important when you're not good. Like that's,
Yeah.
that's that's the community engagement and connection that you keep building when the team is not good. So when they are good, it's even bigger. So shout out to them for staying relevant, keeping it.
Good point.
Yeah.
All right. So what's next?
All right. We're gonna talk about this briefly, but another news item this week, January 19th, TikTok is gonna get banned in the US. So I personally think from a marketing branding standpoint, this is gonna really affect more of the individual athletes than it will the teams and leagues. But overall, it's not good for conversation that we've had on this podcast a bunch of times about how teams and leagues are trying to stay connected with the younger audience, and this is where the younger audience lives, or one place that they live. But interesting enough, ESPN actually is one of the most followed brands on TikTok with 49.8 million followers, which is crazy. That includes me, but I feel like I never see ESPN content on TikTok. Now, I'm not on TikTok as much as I used to, and full disclosure, I also have turned the TikTok from my personal TikTok to the TikTok from my other podcast. So it's more music focused than my algorithm stuff I engage with. So maybe that's why I don't see ESPN stuff. But the bottom line is I think it's going to be interesting to see how this affects how, especially from an NIL space, how athletes, student athletes specifically, who have been using TikTok and TikTok following as a way to show their value to brands, how they have to either lose that audience or move it to another platform, and how they get creative and how they do that is going to be important for them to figure out. And who are going to be the people around them helping them navigate that space, depending on what level they are. That's going to be interesting. But ultimately, I think the athletes will suffer, and then the big brands like ESPN will suffer for not being able to stay tapped in with the younger people who are on TikTok.
I, for me, this just really speaks to the importance of like diversifying what channels you're investing in. Like you can't like if you're like, what are we gonna do? Social strategy and then go all in on TikTok. Because we saw this with Vine 10 years ago or whatever that was. Like Vine died and then TikTok's being banned. Like people now after some of the changes to like Meta's fact checking policies, people are like, are we leaving threads? Like what's happening? Um, like I just think you have to be agile in which uh channels or like platforms you're on and make sure you're diversifying across them because like you never know what's going to happen, whether it's like a policy change or like a popularity change or whatever. That to me is a kind of a really relevant piece of this.
Right. And it's interesting though when we're talking about it from two different perspectives though, like brands, especially media brands like ESPN, will be fine because they still are ESPN. So they're still going to be a place where
But if
people watch. But like
but if
for
ESPN
individual,
hadn't been investing in Instagram, for example, they would lose all social media.
yes, right,
Yeah,
right. If they didn't do anything, and that's also the power of a brand that big is they can have tons of
true.
people to spread, but like it's not the same thing as if these influencer people who have literally only built up a following on TikTok because they can do silly dances or whatever. If that goes away, then they have nothing else. Like they don't have, oh, my main platform is my streaming network, like that I own, that you can always go back and catch me on. It's not just like you're going to TikTok to watch highlights of me being somewhere else, right? I think that's those people are going to be really affected and forced to figure it out.
Yep. No, that's a good point.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Our next topic. As our in-house tennis representative, for Armchair CMO's brand, I feel the need to mention that tennis is back. Officially, it is the Australian Open, which is the first slam of the year. Obviously because it's summer in Australia right now. Um, always at this time of year, there's like a huge switch in my media consumption where I watch way less football and significantly more basketball and tennis. So my algorithms have to keep up. A few like notable things coming out of Australian Open. One is really tied to something we were literally talking about last week, but the Australian Open clearly has been wanting to invest in like a streaming, like social media streaming strategy or like an engaging people off of like the formal broadcasts of the show because last year they started kind of streaming on YouTube, but because of like broadcast rights and agreements, they can't actually like live stream the matches. And so this year they are doing it looks like Wii Tennis, like Wiified versions of the matches on their YouTube channel. And they're live streaming, but it's like not the players playing, it's like Wii characters playing, but they're basically repeating the same way like the NBA Disney cast did, in the same way like the NFL Nickelodeon casts do. They're basically doing the same thing, but like Wii tennis players in order to like live stream the events. I think it's smart for two reasons. Like definitely engages the younger audience, and they're trying to like bring in probably done like alpha, but also like it gives them another way to like I don't know, broadcast. I don't know, another channel for like broadcasting the matches, which like this brings me to my next point of tennis has a unique challenge where the games are played all over the world and the matches are played all over the world. And the fans are all over the world. So there's always this challenge of like matches will be in the middle of the night or at 7 in the morning. Like there's always a challenge of like how are fans going to watch the matches. So this I think is trying to answer that question too.
My first question is like, can you still play Wii tennis?
What do you mean?
Like, if you like, do they
If
still
you have a Wii?
like? I mean, you have
Yep.
to have a Wii, right? But like, do they make Wiis anymore? I don't think they do.
I think they do.
I don't
Why
think
is that your first question anyway?
because I think that it's interesting to your point. Like, if it's supposed to be like the Disney cast and target younger kids, like, do younger kids even know Wii? Like, Wii is something that we got when we were in college, and you probably were a kid. You were in middle school, Jules.
Yeah.
But we played the Wii when we were in college. Like that was a big deal. Like that was like
I think I think Wii is like still a thing. Not like a thing. Like obviously like whatever the latest Nintendo is was like the biggest. I think you can still buy a Wii. But yeah, that's a good point. Like can young kids play Wii tennis? But also like we recognize that it was Wii tennis. But
right.
do young kids? I don't know. Um
Interesting.
yeah.
This Instagram thing I found, ATPWTA memes. It says Australian Open doesn't own all of their broadcasting rights, so they're live streaming a Wii tennis-like version of the matches on YouTube.
Yeah.
Interesting.
ATP is the men's tour, WTA is the women's tour. It's not just like a bunch of letters. FYI.
I knew that, Jules.
Did you know the way you read it? Sounded like you were like
I
saying
read it like
some
that
stuff off
because it
of
was
it.
I read it like that because it was weird having them be written up together. Like it was just like what? All right. That we're getting off topic, but like, okay, cool. So let's say like, well, I mean, the thing about it is like, who's is Nintendo powering it? Like, did Nintendo give?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know.
Because I feels like it should be something where Nintendo was using that to try to promote people to go buy Wii Tennis.
I mean, that would be like a really smart partnership if that's how it's happening. I don't know if that's how it's happening. Maybe I'll have to watch to like it's just been the first round the last couple of days, so I haven't really watched any yet. I'll like probably start tuning in. So maybe I'll like deliberately turn on the YouTube live instead of whatever broadcast so that I can watch like check it out.
Okay.
The other piece about the Australian Open I wanted to talk about quickly. um, I mean, we've talked about this before, like the convergence of fashion and sports. But in tennis, and we've talked about this as well in tennis, like there's so often like a really smart luxury brand and tennis partnerships, which is like a unique thing about tennis because I don't know if there's like that strong of a brand fit with some of the other sports, but like tennis is definitely kind of a more like luxury leaning sport. It's a country club sport. Um, so there's like been kind of a broader range of brands, I think, in tennis for a long time, um, including like Hugo Boss and Taylor Fritz, like worked together on his like fits and I don't know, like very like there's just like a broader range of brands that you see like the players wearing on the court. Um, but I'm seeing, well, Lululemon just got in this game too. I think that this is their first like tennis. No, it's not. Emma Navarro, I think, is a tennis person. But they just announced a new partnership with Francis Tiafoe, who shout out some like DMV area. Um, but he just signed with Lululemon after being with Nike for years. And he's probably like the biggest athlete that they have in tennis. Maybe, maybe not. I might be missing somebody. Like I said, I haven't been watching tennis since probably like US Open. Um, but they did a couple of different like social posts today about it. Um, and like clearly are going to be using him quite a bit, like because it was just announced like last week and now they're already like releasing stuff about it. So I think they're going to be trying to be pretty active in the space. Um, I liked both the videos they did, or both the posts they did. One like released an ad and some messaging, and they had like a "Live like dreams are destined" message, which I loved. It was like a little bit Nike-esque. I feel like it was well done. And then they did another just like little video of trends that he would say are like in or out. Which I thought was also well done because you really got to know him through it. Like there were some things in there where they're kind of like trolling him that I thought were a little bit funny. So that's like the one thing. The other piece is both Coco Gauff and Naomi Osaka had like very specific moments about both of their kits for the tournament that they shared like after their matches and then again online, where Coco Gauff said her outfit for this tournament was inspired by like Marvel female superheroes, and she pulled like certain design elements from that. And then she went on Instagram and was like showing people like how she put on her outfit because she had said in like a post-match interview that it was hard to put on. And then Naomi Osaka said the whole year, every shoe for each of the slams is going to be flower themed. And then she posted a bunch of stuff about how like certain design elements on her kit were like inspired by Haiti, and she's like just like very specific elements that were like really intentional. And I think that this is unique to tennis too, where the players have so much input into like what they're wearing that they can then speak about it at the match or after the match. So that like component is also now coming back with tennis's return to the spotlight.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that's more, and I think it's always been like that. Like I'm not a huge tennis fan, but I've watched a lot of tennis. Like tennis was something that I watched a lot as a kid when I didn't have cable because it was just sports, so it was on. Like, and Wimbledon all like is always around the same week as my birthday, so like they was always part of my like, birthday week. Anyway, but I feel like that's something that's always existed in tennis is like the activation can be a little bit more authentic and a little bit more uh engaging from a brand standpoint when it is apparel, when it is wearable things, because they can wear it while they're competing, but they can also like talk about it because you're gonna get interviewed afterwards. Like, NBA player wearing Versace or Gucci tunnel fits, right? They're not talking about the tunnel fits. They're not getting asked about the tunnel fits or whatever, right? Like they're not, it's not that type of environment
Right.
that you can have that interaction and that one-to-one interaction with a tennis player after a match is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it is. I think because it's an individual sport, I feel like it opens up more opportunity for that. So that could be why we see tennis and fashion having been aligned more closely for a long time. But anyway, like just lots of fun tennis stuff returning to my timeline. this week.
A good segue. Another country club sport. We're talking about golf, which I feel like has also been pretty good about those type of luxury engagements, activations because of it being a one person. We all know Nike Tiger wearing red on Sundays and that kind of thing. But talking about golf because TGL, the golf league, just started this week, which is a new indoor golf league founded by Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy. For those of you who don't know or aren't familiar, it literally is a big screen. It's digital. It's like technology focused where you're hitting the ball into the screen and it's virtually getting landing and on the green and all that kind of stuff. And then you get to putt it in person. And so as I didn't watch it, first of all. I did watch the Sports Center the day before, or maybe the day of, and they did a good segment on it on Sports Center enough that they kind of explained what was happening and gave an example. So like I was interested enough in that, and I got enough information from that to understand that it's actually for someone who doesn't really like golf or watch golf, like this is much easier to digest. This makes a lot of sense because we talk about this all the time. We're trying to tap in with a new audience, trying to fight the clutter, trying to keep up with people's short attention spans. Literally, whether you're in person at the venue, this big indoor facility, looks like a big arcade, like kind of stadium where the screen is like 6 feet tall, not six, 6 stories tall. Like it's like Top Golf, but you're watching professional, like the highest level golfers play a version of Top Golf in this arena, in this building. So whether you're watching it on TV or you're watching it in the venue, it's a much better experience than braving the elements at Augusta or wherever else they're playing these outdoor tournaments where you gotta walk all 18 holes to follow your person that you want to see. Like this is literally 3-on-3. If you only came to see like Tigers on a team, Rory's on a team, like you get to see those guys up close and personal. But again, like I said, you can follow it much more, like it's much easier to follow even if you're watching on TV because you get to see whatever is on the screen that they see in person that they hit the ball, and that's on the broadcast as well. So you can see the visual of where the ball lands and all this other stuff. Like it's easier to watch than real golf is the point that I'm trying to make. And so, as someone who is not really big into watching golf, I could see why they would come up with this as a way to keep up with tapping the next generation of golf fans and keeping people excited about what they got, like what golf is. And it's still the fundamentals of golf are still there, right? But just adding the other elements, and as someone who doesn't like golf, like I love going to Top Golf though. So like this is why I think this is a cool idea. And I think especially with having the guy, having Tiger be involved in it also gives it a level of credibility that people will pay attention to it. They got celebrities involved, like DJ Khaled was at the first game, first match, and like Andre Iguodala that played in the NBA for a long time is really into golf, and he's like one of the co-owners on one of the teams. So ultimately, I think this is cool. Maybe I'll watch it one day. I appreciate what they're trying to do. It did draw almost 1 million viewers on the first night, which is a big deal. Which is like it out
That's pretty
had
big.
that was better than like a lot of the like some big college basketball games last week. So I think that's a big deal. So kudos to Tiger and Rory for starting the TGL. ESPN's invested in it, multi-year deal to stream this. So I think it's not going anywhere. And if it has a good year, I think it has a good opportunity to grow golf to a new generation, a new segment of fans.
Was it? It was on ESPN or ESPN Plus or something.
It was on actual ESPN.
Oh, interesting. Okay, this might like reduce my credibility, but I didn't even know that this was happening. But I can see that it could definitely bring in like more casual fans. Like it has that Top Golf-esque thing. Like it really taps into the like VR and esports and like honestly some of the like the gaming that's like popular among young people that I also think like the Australian Open was trying to tap into. Um, Definitely interesting. I'm so curious though, like I have friends that are like really into golf and like take it seriously and like watch every big tournament and I'm curious what they think of it. Like whether they don't necessarily like take it that seriously or if they're also excited about it. Like I'm very curious. Um
I think that it has an opportunity because it's not trying to replace the PGA, right? Like these are guys who are not they're not quitting the PGA to do this. Like this is just something that on the off season, right? Like to kind of keep people excited, keep them excited too, right? Like you still are using the same muscles and still the same
It's
techniques
the
and
same game. Yeah.
same concepts. It's just like it's just virtual, half virtual.
This I feel like there's a lot of similarities between this and the Unrivaled 3v3 women's basketball tournament or league that's happening where it's like played in the off season, it's player owned.
Mhm.
Like I feel like there's a lot of similarity. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm wondering kind of what's behind a lot of these um pop up like non-traditional leagues that are happening. But I'm also kind of excited. Like, I wonder if it's going to keep happening in other sports. We'll start, maybe a bunch of NFL players will start like a off-season flag football league. I don't think we're going to see that happen, but regardless, kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, but that's also because the UFL exists, and I think the UFL has potential to grow too. So I think that allows people to get their football fix in the summertime, springtime, I guess. But I think it's the point that we've made on this show before as well, is like sports is still the last like authentic, like pure, unscripted television that you can get. Like everything else is there, and don't get it twisted. Like there's so much other stuff to watch. Like so many streaming channels that have a million different shows, but you still can't get the excitement that you get from a
It's the
buzzer
only
beat.
thing that's like truly live that's not news.
Right, right,
Uh, like even like reality shows aren't happening live,
right.
you know?
You can get like a live reunion show or something like that, but like, is that's
Yeah.
really, like not the same. It's not the same.
Okay, I'm calling an audible and I'm talking about something slightly different for a second. That's not on our it's not on our outline. Um, okay, obviously what's happening in LA is devastating and I like have cried a million times about it and I can't stop consuming content about it. But I wanna say like the reaction from everybody that we've been seeing is so like inspiring, the way like neighbors are helping neighbors and brands are helping and teams are caring for the city and whatever. But I really appreciated the way the Cardinals helped out the Rams in a bunch of different ways. Like they sent their planes and this and that. I also literally, like right before we started recording, saw a post that said um, the Rams organized 40 buses, which is a lot of buses, um, to drive Rams fans to Arizona to watch the game there instead. Um, Also, they sold out 52,000 tickets. They sold 52,000 tickets in a 2 hour pre-sale window. Um, so just like love the inspiring outpouring of support from fans who either want to find some like light in a really hard time or just want to show up for a team that represents a city that's going through a hard time. Um, I love that. I don't know. I just love the way like sports is both like a break from reality, but also a way that like people can show up as a united front when a city is going through a hard time. Like I think we saw similar things right after, like truly last week. America's so sad right now, but after all the awful stuff went down in New Orleans, like I think both the Saints and the Pelicans did some things to like show up for the city in ways that were really inspiring. So anyway, also news from this week, but we didn't talking about that.
Yeah.
I'm
LA,
excited to talk about it.
all the LA teams got together and they're going to make donations, which I think is important. I mean, I think it just goes back to what we were just talking about with the Wizards is, that community connection
Like
is
being a part of the
important.
community.
Not just about asking them to come to games and spend money all the time. Like you have to show that you're an active participant in the community that you're in. Otherwise, what other reason is there to support you if you don't support us, right? Like I think that that's very important. So I think, and it's also like, from a because we are a marketing show, right? I think there is also like there's a way to do it that I think I haven't seen a lot, but just what I'm seeing for like even the Lakers making the shirt, I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
hoping that donate the proceeds of that shirt. That seems like logical, but I don't want to. I'm not sure. I'm not for sure, but like you got to do it in a way where it doesn't seem performative, right? Like what are you
Yeah.
actually doing? So like if you're just making a shirt, again like I'm just let's look it up. Let's just be clear.
Yeah,
Lakers.
we can fact check. I want to find my random something else. Yeah, we can just find some like specific info
LA
while we're
sports
here.
teams. So LA sports teams and Fanatics launched LA Strong Fire Relief Campaign. Says an effort to aid recovery. Sports community is united in LA Strong. Merchandise collection.
Oh, also
T-shirts.
like while we're here, Jason Kelsey was wearing the LAFD fire department hat I saw in like the pregame show really briefly before we started recording. Like, yeah, there's a lot happening that the
So it says the participants Lakers, Clippers, Dodgers, Angels, Rams, Chargers, Kings, Ducks, Galaxy, LAFC, Angel City FC, Sparks, UCLA, USC, and then LA 28, which is the Olympics, and the LA Golf Club from the TGL, which we just talked about, are all participating in the campaign. Merchandise is produced by Fanatics, which said 100% of profits would be donated to American Red Cross and the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation. So again, like that's cause marketing is a real thing. And it also like has tons of opportunity for cause marketing to have a presence or being a participant in sports. So this is unfortunately tragedy is one of those times where some of the best examples of that are executed. So kudos to all the Lakers sports teams and organizations for doing this and showing up the right way.
agreed. All right, your turn again. Shifting gears once more.
All right. So today is the 13th. I mean, it's last week was a big week for college football. So the CFP, whatever, I guess that was the semifinals. Because I was at home, my wife was out of town. I actually watched both games. So I watched both games in full, even though she came back in the middle of the second one. Anyway, the games were good, which I think is super helpful. Um, I think from one quick thing I'll say from a marketing and kind of revenue generation standpoint is, the unique position. It was a kind of a point of discussion last week of Notre Dame being independent, right? Like they keep all the money. So whatever
Yeah,
they're making from being in the CFP and then all the money they're making from things around it, that's theirs. There's not sharing it with the conference who's dispersing it with other teams, right? Like it's not happening. And so I bring that up from a marketing standpoint because I remember they had a change in athletic directors maybe before 2 seasons ago, or maybe, I don't know, either last season or the season before. And I remember them having it being a point to showcase the fact that the person that they hired was coming from a background where they worked in media. Like he used to be the president of NBC Universal or something like that. Because he understood that
um,
their brand, what they're building is basically a media company that has a football team, right? They've got this whole Peacock show that has been following them around all season that now has one more episode, the biggest episode, right? Like, because they understand how they can monetize the brand, especially from a media standpoint. But then again, like they don't have to worry about all these constraints from a football standpoint that they got to worry about what's their deal with the conference's platform or the conference's broadcast partner, right? Like Notre Dame football does whatever it wants to make the most money and do the best for the brand of Notre Dame football. And that is on display at the highest level, going to be in the championship game. And they all look like geniuses. And
we
it's
they
also
do.
important too, like, let's make it very clear that they are strategically doing this for football because in all the other sports, they're in the ACC. So they know that football is its own beast and basketballs and the other sports are going to be what they're going to be and like but they're never going to be as big as what football is, Notre Dame football at the highest level is going to be able to do produce money wise.
This is okay. I think that Notre Dame might end up being a little bit of a model for what a lot of the other schools start doing. Tied to what I was saying like last week or 2 weeks ago with like football becoming such a beast in the era of NIL, like they might have to start distancing themselves like from the school a little bit or whatever, like really understanding like if you invest in football, it will like give back. So you might need to start treating it a little bit differently from the rest of the sports and from like a conference perspective. Like we were just talking offline this week about like what all of this Notre Dame and NIL and all of this and stuff means for the conferences and stuff too. So Notre Dame, everybody might just like follow in the footsteps of Notre Dame. We'll see.
But it's going to be, but that's the other part of it, like that that I always want to make sure that when I talk about a lot of stuff and challenges that we have in sports, specifically in college athletics, is like you can't ignore the multiplier that is time, right? Like the brand of Notre Dame football has been one of the top brands in college athletics and all sports for decades. So any of these other schools that we're putting them in this conversation with, because we had a little conversation about it, about what teams we thought would also try to do this, like when we're talking about Clemson and we're talking about Florida, Florida State, LSU, Alabama, like other than Alabama, it's going to be tough for some of
They
these other
have
schools
to have like
because their
a
brand is not
50-year
strong enough to
legacy.
be able to say our brand can carry it, but also our pockets are deep enough to pay the fees for us to leave. Let's do that first. We got to be confident enough that we're going to pay the fees to leave the conference and then know that once we leave, we're going to get all that money back because we're going to be able to do what Notre Dame did. We're going to do it better than them, and we're going to win, and we're going to have all this other stuff, other revenue generated from all these different streams that we can do and not have to worry about sharing it with other people. Like
So
not many people can do that, but I think the biggest my point is like it's because Notre Dame has been doing it for 50 years.
So I just to put some numbers behind this because I literally was just looking this week. I was looking at like revenue by athletic department for like 2023, I think it was. And it was something like 20 schools brought in more than like $150 million a year, with like four or five bringing in more than $200 million a year. And those four or five schools were kind of the ones we were tossing around as the ones who like might be the first to try to go independent. Um, But out of like of FBS, which is I don't know how many schools, like 160 something, um, only 20 even earn a but like what $150 million is always like a ton of money. And then there's another chunk where they like make decent money that's like 80 to 150. But then like even the majority of FBS schools still bring in less than $80 million a year in revenue. And those schools are going to have to start acting very differently from the schools at the very top.
Speaking of that, just to get this over with, because I'm talking too much about it, and we said we are going to talk a lot about it. But sticking with college football,
134 FBS schools. Sorry.
sticking with college football, also big news, just the beast that is NIL and this whole conversation about the differences in NIL and what is actually NIL and getting paid to promote a brand and using your name and likeness to monetize it versus getting paid to play football. Carson Beck got paid by Miami to come play football. So basically, Carson Beck, for those of you who don't know, was the starting quarterback for Georgia, who also made the CFP this year, got hurt in the SEC championship game, put himself in, I think he might have declared for the draft and then was worried, maybe probably was worried about his draft stock because he was hurt. This week he announced that he was going to transfer, put his name in the transfer portal, and within days he had signed with the University of Miami, which won the University of Miami, a blue blood program that has been known for being an active player in NIL both before NIL was a thing and after now that it is actually illegal thing.
That is the
Um,
funniest way to put that.
um, but the also like when I found out this part of it, I was like, how did anyone like how come this was even like how did no one else see this is gonna come? Like once it was announced that his girlfriend, who was one of the Cavender
Yeah,
twins,
that's what I was gonna say.
Cavender twins are very well known for being one of the first few people to actually take advantage of NIL in a major way. Um, they play basketball, women's basketball at Miami. So he is in a relationship with one of them. I don't know which one, but my point is, as soon as he said he was going to the draft, I think everyone at Georgia should have known he wasn't coming back. Because you can put your name in the draft and still consider, like, I think you can come back as long as you don't sign. I don't know.
Like
But
as long as you sign with an agent or something.
yeah, I think there's ways that you can come back. But
Also, if Travis Hunter has taught us anything, these guys will do anything for their girlfriend. So, we still know he was going to Miami.
man, NIL has made us know way too much about these relationships in college athletics. Well, yeah.
I don't think it's NIL. I think it's the rise of like what we were talking about, maybe in like our first episode ever or something. Just like the rise of all the athletes having their own individual followings on social media.
But part of that is they do it because they need to monetize it. Or I mean, some of them do it because they want enjoy doing it. But like, yes, you're right. They have followings, whether they are it's a following because you want to have a following or a following because you want to make money from your following.
Which,
It's
well, I don't know.
reputation.
I think for the Cabinet twins, it honestly started because they're like hot. So just like they could
Yeah, you can say
more
that.
than anything else. But
You can say that.
anyway,
You can say,
continuing.
you can say that. I can't say that.
I'm allowed to say that. Yeah, for sure.
Um, and then the last thing I'll say
Before
about
we go to feminist rant, let's change gears.
all right, the last thing I'll say about NIL, a really cool promo for Fanatics. They have a hashtag for a contest they're running where they're signing people's creative players in the NCAA 25 video game to NIL deals. So your creative player can get an NIL deal and get a custom jersey. And then you get like $1,000 in Fanatics cash for you to spend on merchandise, which I think is a cool promo. So just with all the excitement of one, the game coming back this year, which was a big deal. We know how big we've talked about this show on the show all the time about how big these Twitch streamers, the video game streamers are, and how much people are into that. So a cool way for Fanatics to tap into that, but also be involved in the NIL conversation is I thought that was a really cool, unique social media promo that they got going on. And I'm done. I'm done. That's it. We talked about that.
Okay.
We talked about that way too long.
Well, we just get distracted. Um, this is why we have a podcast, though. Okay, last thing I want to talk about, which now neatly fits into the previous thing we were talking about, which is like teams being active members of their community and like showing up for them. Um, I keep seeing this trend, and I keep hearing news about this. I feel like this has been in the news a lot lately of like debates over stadium conversations, which like there have long been debates about like whether they should be publicly funded and like whether you should tear down neighborhoods to build the stadium. Like there's been like this is a tale as old as time, but um like really lately I've heard of like three or four kind of like hotly contested proposals to like build new stadiums basically, where like the team ownership is pro building a new stadium in one location, but the city or the fans or whoever are very anti that. The latest version of this is the owner of the 76ers and the New Jersey Devils, after 2 years of negotiations with the city of Philadelphia, like last minute reversed a decision to build a stadium downtown, which would be like a really strategic move to try to revive a specific part right near City Hall. Like I said, there's been 2 years of conversations about this, and they've switched in the last few minutes, which like I think is kind of damaging to their relationship with the city. To then keep they're going to still build a new stadium, but it'll be in South Philly where they're playing currently. Um, this sounds like it's not as clear cut. Like I can't tell exactly how the fans feel about it. It sounds like there's like both supporters and critics. So I don't know like overall if the fan bases are happy or not. Um, but just tying into like when you own a team and when you are a team in a city, you are like a very like you're an institution in that city. Like you're an important member of the community from multiple aspects. Like like you are an economic player, like you create jobs and business whenever you have games, like where you put your stadium matters to the economics of like certain parts of the city. And you have to have a good relationship with your fans, you have to have a good relationship with the city. Um, like you have to be thinking more about like what's good for your players or for your profits. Like there's other considerations to take into account, which like we keep seeing this with this type of example, like the Wizards proposal or Monument Sports and Entertainment proposed building a new arena for the Wizards and the Caps in Alexandria, which is like a suburb of DC. And Alexandria and the fans hated it. But the team was just going to go ahead and do it anyway, or like the owners were just going to go ahead and do it anyway. That ended up not going through because it failed in like budget legislation for the state of Virginia. Um, but that was like, it just really highlighted how much these types of moves have an impact on like the economics of the city. Like if they had left the neighborhood of DC that they're in, it would have like destroyed that neighborhood. But also it probably would have destroyed their relationship with their fans because their fans didn't want the move. Um, like another example that I think is going better is like the Bills are building a new stadium literally like next door to their current stadium, which I have my beef with it, but I won't go into it because it's not marketing. But this week, this week they launched or released like new renderings, like updated renderings, and and they're like taking videos from inside the stadium to show like the status and whatever. And I read like a little bit of the mission statement about like all of the things that they're trying to achieve with the new stadium. And it seems very fan centric. Like they're trying to keep the fans updated. They're trying to maintain the culture, like the really unique culture that like the Bills fans have and that Buffalo has. They're like trying to respect the tradition. I don't know, it just felt like very fan centric, where some of these other examples maybe seem like they're like more so ignoring the fans or taking into account solely economic considerations or solely profit consider or whatever. Like there's different kind of so many different situations and they're all very complex, but the point of this is just like how much these negotiations like really really matter to fans, to the city, like how much teams really are like institutions within the city they play in. So it's more like these complicated, it just complicates these negotiations even more.
Yeah.
All I have to say.
So back to wrap it up, the city relationship thing. How
Yep.
about the Rams are winning this game for LA right now?
Oh, are you watching?
I just have it on ESPN right now. It's 27 and quarter. The Rams are winning.
They want to show up for their fans who showed up for them.
That'd be huge. That'd be a big win for,
That is big. So aren't the Vikings like second in the NFC?
well, I mean, they have the second best record, but the NFL has weird seeding. Like you get a higher seed if you're a conference champ, like a division winner. So like Detroit won their division, so they're one. The Eagles are two because they won their division. And
Oh,
then
okay. So they're not two. Okay.
so I think like this is like the 4-5. This might even be like the 4-5 matchup, honestly.
Mhm.
Um, because yes, it is the 4-5 matchup because the Rams were the 4 seed because they won their division.
Interesting. Okay, I did just see this. I saw a headline that said NFL is going to start or is considering using purely the record
Right.
for
Because
ranking.
based on the record, the Vikings, you expect the Vikings to have a home game, so they should have been going to Minnesota, but now they're playing.
Oh, true. Good point.
Okay. Last thing before we go, Jules. Special day tomorrow for those of you who watch the show on a regular basis with all five of you. You know how important it is that Beyonce performed on Christmas, but then she plugged that there was going to be a big announcement on 1/14/25, and that is tomorrow. It's technically in less than 2 hours. I wonder if we're going to get like a midnight drop or we're going to get like,
True.
how Beyonce does. So
Do you have a prediction of what it's going to be?
I think it's just going to be a tour announcement. That's it. Which makes you think
So
that it would be a midnight drop because she wants people to be awake so they can buy tickets.
I saw the most interesting analysis of this, and it has a lot of credibility, I think. I think based on that video that I watched that it's going to be a deluxe version of Cowboy Carter.
Hmm,
Um, and she's
interesting.
gonna drop at midnight. But the reason for that was like a couple of things. The reason that they gave is like none of this is my thinking. Um, was when it's a tour, most people you have to give a little bit of heads up so people can start talking about like, can I afford it? Like, where's it gonna be? Do my friends want to go? Like, you can't just like buy tickets at the drop of a hat without doing any thinking about it or like texting your friends or whatever. So like, it probably isn't gonna be a tour for that reason. Maybe it is, but like, I thought that was interesting, like logic. Um, she's lobbying so hard to have Cowboy Carter be album of the year because she's never won album of the year. So it makes sense that she'd drop a deluxe like closer to the Grammys because Cowboy Carter now came out like true like almost a year ago. Um, and she's still been doing all the Cowboy Carter visuals and everything. So that makes everybody think that it's like still going to be related to Cowboy Carter as opposed to like a new album or the announcement of a new album or something like that. There might have been like one other thing, but I thought all of that was such interesting logic that does point to it potentially just being a deluxe Cowboy Carter or like a full second version, like a full second side, like a double album or whatever.
We'll see.
Am I in the beehive now? What just happened? Can I start a podcast too about music?
Sure. Yeah. You got to be careful if you're part of the Beehive, though. You can't say anything bad about Queen.
What do I have to say that's bad? I adore her.
I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you. All right, Jules.
Great chat.
Great chat.
Take a
Go,
shot for every time we got off topic.
go Rams. See if the Rams can finish this out.
And also like pray for LA.
Yes.
All right. See you next week, Bon.
That's what later.